Welcome back to Let's Talk Business Phoenix, the Greater Phoenix Chambers podcast. I'm your host, Todd Sanders, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber. Throughout each episode, we're going to explore key issues impacting our businesses, our community, and our state, highlighting opportunities for growth, addressing some challenges, and bringing leaders together to continue moving Phoenix forward. Let's jump into today's discussion. Welcome back, everyone. We have a special guest here with us today. We have the incomparable Jay Parry, who's the CEO of the Phoenix Final Four Local Organizing Committee. Jay, welcome back.
Thank you. It's so great to be with you, and it's so great to be on the clock.
As it were.
Yeah.
Well, I know we've had you before, but and for the two or three other people out in Phoenix who don't know who you are, maybe a little bit about who you are and your background.
Yeah, sure. Well, we are getting ready for the Women's Final Four,
Yes.
and so I have the privilege of leading the major events on behalf of Arizona. And so that's just in recent times with Super Bowl in 2023. It was the Men's Final Four in 2024, and a few things before that. But it's been just really exciting and fulfilling to work on major events on behalf of Arizona, just because of what it does for our communities and just the impact it can have. And before that, I was with the Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Mercury, our hometown basketball team.
Absolutely.
So that was a special place in my heart. I've worked at the WNBA office in New York. And so that was a really exciting position, bringing the WNBA to more homes and just, more visibility. And prior to that, I had a career at Bank of America, which was also super fulfilling. So it's been a serendipitous journey. And each one of those steps has been incredible, right? And it always comes down to the people.
Well, it's funny because you're truly a Renaissance woman, but it's almost like anytime there's a major event in Phoenix, it's synonymous with you. You are sort of the center of. I'm sure for you it's a little stressful, but for us, I think out there, knowing that you're here gives us a lot of comfort that it's actually going to work out.
Yeah. That is so kind to hear. And again, I get the opportunity to lead these, but I have to tell you, it takes the entire community, it takes the entire valley, state officials, you name it, people are involved in it. And that's what's been so cool, is just the support and the positive energy and the belief in what we can do in working together on behalf of our state.
Well, and it's so exciting. Correct me if I'm wrong, first Women's Final Four.
That you're right.
Really?
Spot on. This is an iconic moment for the community.
Absolutely. So a couple of things, thinking about sort of, before we get into some of the details in the committee, which I want to talk about, what's this going to mean for the fans, for instance, the fan experience downtown?
Yeah. What's great about the Women's Final Four and being the first time to host here in Arizona and in Phoenix is, of course, kind of the surge in interest in women's sport. And so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that. And what we're able to do is create a downtown campus that we really haven't had with any of our major events. This is going to be unique. The games will be played at Mortgage Matchup Center, and we have just a great partnership with the Suns and Mercury for that. And all of the events are going to be in downtown Phoenix, with a few exceptions around the valley, because we like to be inclusive of our other communities. But it's going to be super walkable.
Okay, so you will be able to walk.
Oh my gosh, You can, ride light rail in,
Nice.
Take your ride share downtown, parking will be available, but all the major events will be in downtown Phoenix. And that's going to make this really special, and I think create a really energetic environment for the week leading up to Women's Final Four.
Well, so cool, and I think probably makes us unique. I would suspect in terms of Final Fours and having that combination of amenities for fans, not just the people who are necessarily even going to the games, but just everybody.
Exactly, and I think that's the idea: is having our residents, right, our businesses, our small businesses, all participate in this amazing championship experience. And we also are partnering with ASU as the host institution, and they've got a big campus downtown as well. And so getting those students involved in classes about the Women's Final Four and coming to the events and are working with the NCAA to just make this a really special experience.
What about, talking about folks getting involved, what about volunteers for this, essentially this national event here in Phoenix?
Yeah, so volunteers are important, and for a couple reasons. One is, what we're really good at here in the Valley is rolling out the red carpet for all the visitors. And we expect, tens and thousands of visitors to come from all 50 states. And in Tampa last year for the Women's Final Four, they had visitors from 23 countries. And so this is a global event. And so our ability to really deploy our special ambassadors at the airport and around downtown.
Okay. We are going to have folks at the airport.
Absolutely. Okay. At the hotels, wayfinding to just make people feel really welcome and, that they know that there's a major event going on. And so those volunteers bring that special kind of ingredient because there's always questions about, well, where do you think I should go to dinner? What's the easiest way to get over to Tempe? Or, check this out. Or what do you think about going to the Grand Canyon? And our volunteers, there's just nobody better to tell that story.
I love that. And it makes such a difference. Like I was privileged enough to be able to go to Paris for the Olympics. And that was one of the questions we had because we had to go to the stadium and there was no car, so you had to take the subway. And we got off and there was volunteers stationed that spoke probably 20 different languages and that could answer these questions, but it made such a difference. And I love that we're doing that here for people, that they will have an experience that it's going to make it easy for them to attend and enjoy the game.
Right. And those are the memories, right, that our locals get to have too. I mean, I've talked to so many people over the past couple of years and they say, I volunteered at Super Bowl and here's what I got to do. And it was so amazing. And I can't wait to come back and work with you guys on the Women's Final Four. So that's makes it special.
It is true about another thing about us when we roll up our sleeves and we get it done. Fiestival is another good example of that.
Great example of volunteerism and just our community, right? The WM Open, PIR and what happens at NASCAR, they all have great volunteers. And I think it is something special that we have here in Arizona because we're all from somewhere else. And so we love to make people feel welcome.
Yes. So speaking of that, first time that we get to host a Women's Final Four, what stood out in our bid to the powers that be that made sure that we got that here?
Yeah. A couple things. One is we have a great hosting resume. I mean, we are expert at hosting major events, and that is a community-wide effort. And so that's number one. Number two is they want to make sure that they have these championship experiences in the West. The last time the Women's Final Four was in the West was 2012.
Oh,
so it's been a minute.
Yeah.
We're due, and that was in Denver. And then when you look at our collection of hotels and resorts and the weather that we have in April and the business community that really embraces major events, I mean, we're checking all the boxes and then some. And so the NCAA was really excited to come back. And we also, since we've hosted 2 men's Final Fours, they know us.
We've got the credentials.
And that's important.
Yeah, and we deliver. I mean,
exactly.
And you're on a yearly basis, obviously with the Open and everything else.
Yeah. And we're also about, just as a community, how do we always elevate something, right? Of course, we want to check all the boxes in the bid, but we also want to figure out what can we do that's new? How can we take it to the next level? And we have a reputation for that with these major event producers.
So tell us a little bit about the work of the committee and what you've been doing leading up to today and into the tourney.
So the planning began in earnest about 18 months ago. And so the staff and all of our partners with the City of Phoenix and ASU and Mortgage Matchup Center, and then, the list goes on. We roll up our sleeves and we do everything from venue management to transportation to public safety to venues that are going to participate with parties and events, etc., hotels. I mean, marketing and communications. I mean, you name it, the team's been working on it. And what's exciting is now it's almost event week. And so we're 18 months into it and everything is coming alive and coming to fruition. And our businesses in downtown Phoenix are really excited about, welcoming everyone to their establishments.
Well, it's such a cool opportunity and such a big responsibility. And it's tremendous that we've got this committee of folks that are essentially going to be deployed to make sure this all works.
Right. Yeah. And that's the great thing about this, our hosting history, is that everyone kind of knows their role in a way, right? And so they know what they need to do. They know when they need to do it. And so we have a great roadmap from Men's Final Four in 2024, and we can apply that to Women's Final Four coming up next week. And it's still, each one of these events is also unique.
Yeah.
And it attracts, different types of audiences from around the world and around the state. And so we always like to really kind of embrace them and make sure their experience is really special.
Well, and given your experience and our experience, maybe this question isn't necessarily that relevant, but when you're thinking about sort of, getting the event rolling, get everything happening? What keeps you up at night?
So, I mean, do I look tired? Like
You
I
don't.
haven't been sleeping because,
No,
you know,
and
there's
honestly, you
definitely-
probably just call it in at this point. You've done this so many times.
That's so not true. My friends say, you're the only one we know that can exist on 5 hours of sleep a night. And I'm like, I can for a while. So I've got a little bit left in the tank. You know, what keeps me up at night is things that are out of our control, because we are such great planners. So everything that's out of our control is, how are we going to handle it when it comes up? Because it's just going to come up.
It'll happen.
Things are going to happen, and we're good with that, and we're ready for that. And so an example is for men's Final Four, UConn, who is participating, their airplane arrived late. The team actually touched down at 4 a.m., you know, with the coaches and the team and
Poor
the spirit.
kids.
I mean, I felt so bad for them. And we want to make sure that all 4 teams get the same experience when they land.
Right.
And so we like to have a big welcome mat out. And so the whole staff, 30 to 40 folks, came back at 4 a.m.
Really?
You know, we had the DJ playing, we had the photo ops, we had the social media team. You know, we welcomed them with welcome gifts. And so they got the exact same experience as the other 3 teams did. And I have to tell you, Coach Hurley and the team members, they were just so grateful, and they really appreciated the extra effort. And that's what we want to be known for, going above and beyond.
Well, they probably expected just to arrive.
They
at 4
did.
a.m. and
I
you
mean,
know, get into a hotel.
They were all waking up, right, from being on the plane. And here we are out there, you know, waving pom-poms and blaring the music. And so they were really grateful for that. And so it made it worthwhile.
Well, and maybe you've answered this, but what gives you confidence then?
You know, just having the team in place and everyone knowing their role and all the planning that's gone into this really sets us up well for just, you know, hitting it out of the park and exceeding everyone's expectations, which is always the goal. I mean, the goal is, and it was true of Super Bowl, and speaking with Commissioner Goodell, and then the NCAA Men's Final Four, and Dan Gavitt and Joanne Scott, who run that event, you just want them to want to come back.
Yeah.
And so that's our goal for the Women's Final Four, is to make this an amazing experience and have the committee and the NCAA just ready to come back and excited about it. And I've certainly heard that many times from
And
others.
I can see why. So I want, just curious, do you, when you think about, you know, the job ahead, when you were thinking about this, do you look back at the tape? Did you go to Tampa? Did you go to some of these other places and sort of learn from what they're doing, maybe what they did wrong, but also what they did right?
We absolutely always go on a site visit, you know, multiple years in advance, because there's always something to be learned, right? I mean, we definitely are good at it and experts at it, but you always pick up something, as you said, whether you something you want to be doing or something you want to avoid. And Tampa did a great job with Women's Final Four last year. That was the 4th time they'd hosted. And so I also feel like, hey, we're coming off of the expertise of Tampa.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And that was also a fairly compact footprint, but I think we're even gonna tighten it up a bit and have a campus that's gonna be really accessible and easy to manage.
Which is going to be tremendous. What impressed you most about Tampa?
You know, what I would say is their pregame experience around the arena was super lively and, you know, bustling and a lot of energy. And so we want to make sure that outside of Mortgage Matchup Center, which, again, we have a great footprint for this.
We do.
The people feel the energy kind of when they're walking into the games. And I think something that we want to take to the next level is that when you step off the airplane at Sky Harbor Airport, that you know you've arrived at a major event. And so we've got a great decor program planned, because I think that's when your journey starts, right? And you're like, oh, I've arrived. This is going to be so cool. And people are already starting to take pictures. And so
I like that you're thinking about it at the airport. Because Tampa, for instance, Tampa has a good airport, and I'm sure they leveraged that.
They did.
But we have a better airport, so we can certainly leverage us.
Yeah. I mean, just, you know, being voted by the Wall Street Journal as the number 1 airport, and just the work that Chad and his team do every year in and year out. And they're so well suited for these surges that major events bring to town. So we have a lot of confidence in them, you know, kind of getting back to one of your earlier questions. And they're just like the tip of the spear in terms of other groups that are involved.
So, you know, we talked about the fact that, you know, we're good at this. We've done it before. This, of course, is the first time for the Women's Final Four. What's this going to mean for our reputation?
You know, it builds our reputation. And what we know is that this is an important major event that will be great to have on our resume. And it's exciting because it's a women's event. And as we think about coming off of the Winter Olympics and all the fantastic stories around the hockey team for women, right? The figure skating for women, there were so many great women's stories. I think that sets us up really well for interest coming into this women's Final Four. And then you look back at, we just had WNBA All-Star here, right? We just had some Phoenix Mercury championships here. And we've got, we had a She Believes soccer event here that was all women. So I think it really plays into highlighting how inclusive Arizona is, the great female leadership we have in this state, at elected officials as well as business professionals. So I think it really plays into also telling the story about how you can succeed in Arizona as a woman.
Well, and you mentioned this earlier, this sort of incredible rise of women's sports. Like, I think about my son, and he's Gen Zer and all his friends. Women's sports are a thing for them. They think about them, they follow them, they go to these sporting events, which is awesome. Right. What's behind all that?
Yeah. I mean, what we've seen, especially with the Women's Final Four, which is definitely kind of the tip of the spear around women's sport, is that there's more media coverage now. So we see, viewership up from a media standpoint. Social media content, it was like over 22 million engagements in last year's Final Four. And so that's all going to continue, for this Phoenix event. And so having it readily available, and I think it also is very it's cultural engagement around having women on a platform they haven't been on before.
Yeah.
Right. In my days in the WNBA, starting in 2004, when I worked with the Phoenix Mercury, we've come a long way over the past 20 years. And so this is going to be a super special moment for Arizona. Mayor Gallego is pumped up about the women's Final Four.
We've heard about this a few times with the mayor.
Good. I'm glad. She's one of our best ambassadors. So I think it just is a great story about Arizona.
Well, it occurs to me that for women's sports, it was always good that they just never had the spotlight on them so that people could see it.
Exactly.
Right?
You have to see it. Yeah. You have to have that media viewership and that media partnership. ESPN is so invested in the women's Final Four. They'll have a mega cast our week. They're broadcasting the whole March Madness, and then our week, they will have as many cameras in Mortgage Matchup Center as they had at State Farm Stadium for the men's Final Four. So a stadium of 60,000 people now crushed down to about 15,000 at Mortgage. You won't miss anything about the women's Final Four with ESPN.
I love it. Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we know that these events do have an economic impact as well. And I think there are some pretty good numbers, for instance, for Super Bowls for the Open. What about Women's Final Four?
What's important for our local stakeholders, right? Our business leaders, our elected officials, is that we have a consistent set of measurement for these major events. Yeah. It's like how you run your business. You always want to be looking at it consistently. So we have a template from past major events. You said Super Bowl, Final Four, college football playoff. And so we will apply that same research to this event. We work with the ASU and the Seidman Institute. They do a fantastic job. So we'll measure over that week of Women's Final Four and then publish that study come this summer. But we haven't seen a Women's Final Four report that is as comprehensive as we like to do. And so this, I think, will be unique and give us some new data points for us locally, but also for the NCAA.
Which will be tremendous for us going forward.
It is. You just want to make sure you're always looking at it really consistently. And we always learn something, right? And we do intercepts, right, of people around the arena, people inside the arena, what their experiences is, what they're spending. And so we'll have the general economic impact numbers, and then we look at job creation, right? We look at spending. We look at how did you spend your time when you were here? Did you leave the valley and go to the Grand Canyon while you were here? So we capture all that data.
Which I think is going to be really interesting to see. When you think about, for instance, hospitality, retail, restaurants, where do you think there's going to be the most impact from an economic standpoint?
It's all those. Because for visitors, it's driven by, right, their hotel stay or their VRBO or their Airbnb. But then you have all the locals that are going to participate. So that is, right, restaurants, it's attractions, it's transportation. So all those things will see a lift. When you look back at like a Super Bowl and a men's Final Four in 2023 and 2024, The hotel revenue went up $93 million for those two events. So that's year over year. So without the Super Bowl, we would not have had that $93 million in revenue at hotels. And so it will be a meaningful impact for all those categories.
Which, yeah, and to your point, I mean, even thinking about, you talked about the airports, so airlines, all of the associated businesses at the airport, and then coming into town, all of those groups are going to see an impact.
And all the tax implications of that, right?
Let's not forget that.
And what's so clear about these major events is the ROI. It happens really quickly because we are, raising money for 18 months, and then we have a week of economic impact, but there's also a long tail on it. And so we look at programs like our CEO Forum, where we invite CEOs from outside of Arizona to come to the Women's Final Four. We'll be hosting it again this year. And we work with Arizona Commerce Authority and other economic development stewards, et cetera. And we introduce folks to Arizona through the Women's Final Four. But we have for them a curriculum around why this is such a great place to do business. And we have great stats on even from Men's Final Four, coming out of that CEO Forum, we had about 15 new projects in the pipeline. One of those companies did relocate. And so, it creates a really long tail on the economic impact.
Thinking about that ROI just from that initial investment, and then thinking about 10 years worth of jobs, right?
Yeah.
Huge.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, with Super Bowl, job creation was over 10,000 job years just from the week of Super Bowl, right? And that's kind of equated to one person working for a full year. So it's meaningful. And that, we get super excited about all the metrics, can you tell? And just making sure that we're making a real impact from a quantitative standpoint, but also from a legacy standpoint, right? And for our residents, and making our community stronger long after, in this case, the Women's Final Four takes place.
And obviously this isn't just large businesses. Small, mid-sized businesses can also benefit here.
Yeah, they really can. Because when we roll out the red carpet, and whether you've been to Arizona before or you're coming for the first time, I mean, we know when you're here in early April, you're going to come back. And so all those businesses get immediate impact, but also kind of future impact. So yeah, lots of ways to get involved. I mean, another way is we have a supplier diversity network. And so those are event-ready businesses that we connect with events that are coming to town for the Women's Final Four, and they potentially get business from those events. So we want to make sure that it's a really direct connection with all different size businesses.
I think a tremendous way of looking at this and making sure that everyone's at the table. As far as the community itself and the importance of community engagement for a successful event?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't happen without community engagement. And that's everything from elected officials to business leaders to volunteers to all those, small and mid-sized businesses that provide really important services, to our hotel and our tourism industry. I mean, they're key to this. Sports tourism in the U.S. is like a $128 billion business or something. I mean, it's enormous. And this is, one small sliver of that. So having that community engagement is really important. And the other thing that's great about sports, and this, I mean, you're a sports fan, it brings us together. It unites us in a really positive way, right? In a really positive environment. And it doesn't matter what your background is or kind of any of your beliefs, everybody comes together to cheer for their team. And it's true of the Women's Final Four. Everyone will be cheering for these four teams that have gotten to this amazing level of competition. And it'll be life-changing for those student athletes, too.
Absolutely. It is. It's a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, it really is, for all of us.
So, true. Thinking about folks who aren't necessarily in the arena, what can they expect to see, or visitors expect to see or engage in outside of the game itself, or the games themselves?
What's really special about the Women's Final Four is all those wraparound events are free. We've not been able to say that in the past.
Yeah.
And so they are all free. And so the idea is, how can all of our residents take advantage of this championship experience? So for 4 days, starting on Thursday, April 2nd, we will have Tourney Town open at the Phoenix Convention Center, which is games and special appearances and autograph signing and merchandise. So that's Tourney Town for 4 days. And then new this year, never been done before for the women's Final Four, is For It All Fest. And that will be an outdoor tailgate on 3rd Street in downtown Phoenix, which will have viewing parties of the men's game and the women's game. It'll have a basketball court so you can shoot some hoops. It'll have some local food trucks. So it'll be really a fun, free environment to just take in basketball if you want to and be a part of it. And then on Saturday, it's Super Saturday. So that starts with our bounce event, which is all the kids in a parade bouncing their basketballs through Phoenix.
That's going to be awesome.
It's super fun.
I like that.
I could get you signed up for that, even though you're not under 18.
I mean, I'm close.
And then, so it starts with bounce and then Tourney Town, and then the 2 championship teams will practice at Mortgage Matchup Center. So you can literally go into the arena, see the court, see them practice, all for free. And then on Saturday night, we'll have a concert at Hance Park. So it's a full day on Saturday, and it's all free.
Well, and where in this day and age can you get all of that for free, really?
Right.
You know, I mean, if you have money, sure. But to be able to have people come in and do all of that with a family is so cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. We even have one of our partners, which is the Tohono O'odham Native American community. They're bringing in 50 of their kids for like a special tour on Saturday morning of Tourney Town. So we really want folks that aren't usually exposed to these types of events and activities to, you know, come participate and just have a lifelong memory from it.
Absolutely. Well, take us into the morning of the start of the tournament. What's Jay going to be doing?
Each morning of that week, we have a conference call with the NCAA and all of our local partners to just talk about the day. You know, what do we need to make sure is covered? Any last minute things that have come up unexpectedly. So we start with a conference call, and literally it goes from there.
So you're hitting the ground running right after that conference call with everybody.
Yeah, usually I think they're about 7:30 a.m., so it's a good start. And then there really are events throughout the day leading up to the game. Sports ETA, which is a national organization, will have one of their women's summits. So I'll get to go on Friday morning and address that group before the game. So that's really fun to just talk about women and sports and business and the intersection and how you get involved in it. And then we'll lead into, we have a pregame party. So we always have a tailgate before one of these major events. And then literally you step into Mortgage Matchup Center and you get 2 of the best basketball games, you know, you're going to see in your life.
100%.
And there's just a 30-minute break in between, and it sounds like a lot of basketball, but it goes by really quickly.
So is it safe to assume you're not going to be just hanging out in a chair watching the game?
Probably not just hanging out. Probably not a lot of sitting.
The one person who's probably not going to get to watch the game?
Exactly. But it's go time, right? Mm-hmm. And again, Mortgage Matchup Center, our sons in Mercury Crew, they're so great at this. ASU runs all the game operations. You know, they do that all year long. And they're coming off, right, of some great energy with ASU and Coach Miller and what she's done with that program in the first year. All that plays into the energy of Women's Final Four. So, no, not a lot of sitting this weekend. Yeah.
And so then after the games at night, I'm assuming there's more going on for you?
Well, on Friday night, the games will wrap up, and that'll kind of be it. But then you get ready for Super Saturday morning and start again with that conference
3 hours
call.
sleep.
Yeah, 3 hours sleep the next morning. I mean, it's go, 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 but these are the fun days, right? I mean, you got to love an adrenaline rush to be in this business, and it's just adrenaline for a week straight.
No butterflies?
Not a lot of butterflies.
See,
no.
You're just a pro.
I don't know about that. I have so much confidence in our extended team and again, the planning that's gone into it. I mean, if something pops up, I'm going to get nervous like everybody else, but I know we've got the right pieces in place to take care of it.
What about the media side of that? How does that all work?
Yeah, that's a great question.
About that world.
The media is also really important. I mean, when you think about why do we do these major events? Because it's a heavy lift, and there's a lot of planning that goes into it and a lot of people that have to participate. Media is key because this puts us on the global platform. Right? That's why we want to be able to tell the story of Arizona, tell the story of Phoenix, how we're growing, we're the 5th largest city, things that people still don't know about. It's why it's such a great place to live and work. So the media that comes from around the world gets to tell that story on our behalf, right? It's always better when they're telling it firsthand.
Earned media.
Exactly, earned media. And the other exciting thing is last year the Women's Final Four was broadcast in about 150 countries. This year, it's going to be over 220 countries are going to see this game in Phoenix. You know, all the beauty shots, the lead in, the lead out.
The blimp.
Exactly, the blimp, all the things, the drone shows, like whatever it's going to be, the fireworks. So the media plays a really important role. And so we'll have media operations, at Mortgage Matchup Center, and they'll visit all the ancillary events as well. So it's a really important aspect to why we do these.
So what do you do, for instance, when you have something unexpected? To your point, I think it was a couple of Super Bowls ago, the fog decided to roll in. It was something that never happens.
Never
in Phoenix.
happens. I still have a picture on my phone of that fog. And when I see it, I get a little freaked out, I got to be honest. As you mentioned, I do get kind of... so what do we do? We have, there's a command center that's kind of got eyes on everything happening. And we circle up, we have a communication chain, and it's usually pretty obvious who you need to talk to and what you need to talk about. So it all comes down to these great partnerships with public safety, right? With transportation, with our City of Phoenix partners in this case. And everybody rallies for it. Everybody's on speed dial. Everybody's on the cell phone. So.
And I do want to make sure that we hit on this because it's the times we live in. I'm sure that this is something we're thinking about, but public safety, the safety of those that are down there. How are you thinking about that?
I have to take you back to Super Bowl in 2015. And so as we were preparing for that in 2012 and 2013 and 2014, public safety became much more important because we were coming off of the tragedy that happened at the Boston Marathon.
Yep.
And so frankly, our antenna went up at that point and said, we need to be thinking about this a little bit differently. And so we have since that time, and with our phenomenal public safety partners, really looked at this in a holistic way. It's a multi-jurisdictional approach. And so all the cities rally their resources, federal resources get rallied. And I have to say that Arizona has a phenomenal reputation for how all those different agencies work together. And we don't even have to worry about that. I mean, they have it so wired, they come together, and they do that for all the major events. And so that is a feather in our cap that I can't take credit for because it's our public safety folks that really step up and make a difference.
Which is so critical, and I think probably makes us unique as well because we're good at that.
Super unique. And it started in 2008 when we hosted Super Bowl 42, which was before my time being involved in this. And we really set the roadmap for it that then the NFL asked other cities to follow. And so we've just upped our game each time, and it is one of our calling cards.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the folks from Vegas called you and had conversations about what we did. They were pretty nervous.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they're Vegas, but...
Exactly, right. But I think everyone at these major cities and major event hosts, they understand there's always something to be learned. And that's what keeps the work so interesting. It's never the same. And that kind of keeps it energized and fresh.
So it's hard to imagine, but looking beyond this Final Four, what do you think? What's next for us?
Sure. So, we have hosted more major events in the past 10 years than any other market in the U.S. So first, we have a lot to be proud of as business leaders and as elected officials and residents of this community. As we look ahead, the goal is keep the momentum going because this is a shot in our economic arm and, again, is really important to our reputation as a community. And so 2 weeks after the Women's Final Four, we will host the Forbes Under 30 Summit. And so this is a new event that Arizona Commerce Authority is leading, and we're supporting them on that. But it's really a fun opportunity to have, and again, you and I are not going to get invited to the Forbes Under 30 event.
Barely.
We're just close. Yeah. But we'll have, creators and innovators and entrepreneurs from around the U.S. coming to Arizona to really collaborate and exchange ideas on their businesses. And we'll also be able to recognize 30 unique individuals in Arizona. So we're excited about that. That happens 2 weeks after the Women's Final Four. Then we roll into MLS Next Fest is at the end of the year. So that's in December. And this is the second time we're hosting. This is the biggest youth soccer showcase in the U.S. So over 30,000 athletes come and participate. And so that'll be at the end of the year. And then we roll into the NBA All-Star in 2027, and we'll be back to basketball.
That again.
Yeah. So the Suns and Mercury are leading that, but we were really excited to have NBA All-Star back. It really fits into our basketball DNA, and I think what's happened with even the format of that game with the U.S. versus the world that happened in L.A. this past year, I think there's kind of exciting interest to see what 2027 is going to look like.
That's exciting.
Given that the audience is a lot of folks in the audience are business leaders or business owners, what can the business community do to support you not only with this upcoming event, but everything else that you've got coming up?
I think, businesses and business leaders just play a really critical role in our success for hosting major events. And we have great stakeholders that have stepped up, but there's always room for more. And so we want to make sure that those business leaders know they can be a part of this. They can make an impact, right? That's the great thing about Arizona is if you step up to the plate, you can make an impact. So I would say reach out to us and get involved in the Women's Final Four or anything coming up. And that applies for really all size businesses. And you can go to ArizonaSportsAlliance.com and see all the events we've hosted, what's coming up, and also volunteerism. It's important that we get volunteers involved on a personal level. And I think our challenge, because it's become increasingly competitive for these major events, you and I have talked about
Absolutely.
it. Like other markets have woken up and they're like, oh yeah, we should try to host the Super Bowl or the men's Final Four. So with the competition raising, we have to work together and also stay on our front foot, right? Keep our foot on the gas. And that means creating more engagement and sustained funding at the state, the county, the city, and the private level.
So private and public.
Exactly. Yeah, need to come to the table. And as business leaders and elected officials, we need to work together to make sure that we are well positioned to continue this momentum. And there's a lot of work to be done around that.
Well, it's a point well taken. I think a couple of months ago we had lunch and talked about the idea that we have some incredible verticals here in terms of industry. Certainly advanced manufacturing, healthcare, financial services, the construction industry development. But the business of sports is significant in not only Phoenix, but in Arizona.
It really is. I mean, the whole sports ecosystem is probably at this moment undervalued, if you will, and not fully understood. But when you think about the professional teams, you think about our college athletic programs, you think about our annual events, the WM Open, the Fiesta Bowl, NASCAR, Cactus League, I mean, just to name a few. And then you put on top of that the major events. This is an economic driver for our community, and we need to, feed it, we need to sustain it, and we need to make sure we're staying competitive because the returns are incredible.
Is it fair to say that we've maybe taken it for granted a little bit?
You know what? I think we have, but what's great is we've been doing the work. And so I think we're in a really good spot to just tell the story in a better way, in a more compelling way now, if that makes sense. And I think people will rally for it. But the great thing is we've got a proven track record and a proven resume. And so I always feel good about it. If you're already doing the work and then you just need to tell the story, I think we're in good shape.
Well, speaking of stories, I just want to add one final thing. For instance, Waste Management Open has a great track record of ensuring that zero waste. What are we doing in terms of renewables and making sure that we're not adding to, for instance, to landfills with this Final Four?
With every major event, we want to make sure that we're really fulfilling our local stakeholders' interests. And so when we look at some of the buckets of work they're interested in, education is one of them, health and wellness is another, and then sustainability is really important to our state and our stakeholders. And so we have a major kind of recycling and reuse program where after every major event, we go and we collect all the materials, Todd, and you cannot imagine the fence scrim, the wood, right? The chairs, the pole banners, the, decor items. So we collect all of that and then we parse it out to nonprofits around the state. So we really are recycling and reusing and minimizing kind of the carbon footprint of these events. And one of the things that we did with Men's Final Four is we created these padfolios, which are used in business. And this literally on the front and the back, this was a pole banner.
You're kidding.
No, I mean, it's like
great.
super cool
Yeah, that is cool.
plastic. So it's a keepsake,
like
but
it.
it's also just showing that there's so many ways to reuse things.
Yeah.
And our nonprofit community goes nuts for Keep Phoenix Beautiful was taking some of the scrim and putting it over community gardens. I mean, there are just so many applications for it. And so we really try to make that kind of a unique contribution of a major event.
Well, it's good to see that we're doing that here. And I think setting the stage for the rest of the country to follow our lead.
Yeah, we love that. We always want to be first in all these things. And major events are a way for us to really demonstrate how innovative, right, creative, and resourceful we are as a community.
So before we finish up, if folks want to get more information about the Final Four, where should they go? Is there an internet or a web address that they can look at? Or we can certainly put it up at.
That would be
you can
great.
Remind us.
That would be great. Go to phoenixfinal4.com and it talks about all the events, all the ways to get involved. And then W Final Four is our social handle. And so that's, again, where most people get their events.
Okay, and all the social channels they can follow there.
Yeah,
okay.
All the social channels.
Very nice.
Yes.
Well, Jay, thank you, not only for joining us here, but really, I wasn't kidding. I mean, these things happen in so many ways because of your leadership, and we're grateful, and we don't take that for granted. So thank you.
You're kind. You can tell I love to talk about this stuff. I get super excited about it.
You're good at it. I hate to be the rest of the country. So we're going to do a quick lightning round with you as we finish up. The first one is, what book or person changed your life?
Oh my gosh. I was just, of course I have to talk about my parents. My parents were amazing.
Clearly.
And I got my love of sports from my dad, who took us to every sporting event under the sun when we were kids. And so that kind of got me interested in sport and just kind of the power of it in our communities. My parents.
Yes.
But I was thinking today about one of my mentors was Kathy Monroe, who was an executive at Bank of America. And she just taught me so much about relationships and giving back to the community and doing it in a really kind way. I learned a lot from Kathy, and I try to apply that every day. So I think she really changed the trajectory of my life and my career.
Well, I hope she knows that. The power of mentorship is so huge. Whether you know it or you don't, as a mentor, it's a big deal.
It is. And she was masterful because she mentored me and I didn't even know it. When people say, who are your mentors? I was like, oh, I don't know who my mentors were. But I look back and go, oh my God, like Kathy showed me the way. Yep. And so that's quite a talent. And I still really appreciate it.
I love that. We'll then switch it to something maybe a little more trite. What's your pet peeve?
Oh, I think I probably get a little bit less and less patient. And so it's like, move it along, people. We don't need a long story here. Let's cut to the chase. Let's make a decision. Let's move on.
Okay.
How about you?
I like that. I agree with you 100%. Like when I go on a panel, please don't read my bio. It's okay. My mom loves that, right? But that's
exactly.
Pretty much it.
Yeah, but your mom still doesn't really know what you do.
Not really. No.
Yeah.
And then the final, since we did before we started called you Wonder Woman, favorite superpower or superhero that you would want to be?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think it would be Wonder Woman. She was amazing. She had a cape. Yeah. She had a super cool onesie, which those are back.
Yeah, those are good. Jet that's invisible.
And she had jet, exactly. She could just jet around. I think that's it.
I mean, you nailed it.
That's my goal.
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, my friend.
Yeah.
Best of luck. We'll be cheering for you from the sidelines, and then look forward to catching back up to see how this went, but also to your next endeavor.
Yeah, I mean, we are up for the next endeavor, and this is your official Women's Final Four pin that you have to wear until tournament time.
I'll wear it proudly.
Please do.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Business Phoenix. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode. We're glad that you could join us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.